All right, this is part two of our Live Well conversation. And for many, the path to parenthood is filled with hope, and it is one that is a joyous journey. But for those facing prolonged infertility, it can also be a journey of emotional and physical strain. And when they finally become parents, the joy is profound, but it can also come with lingering fears, heightened vigilance, and the challenge of adjusting to parenthood after such a long and uncertain journey. Life after infertility can have a unique mix of relief, gratitude, and the ongoing work of healing and bonding. We talk about what parents go through during this period, the emotional highs and lows, the coping strategies that work, and the ways to embrace parenthood fully after years of waiting. Siphesihle Dlamini is back on the show. She did a fantastic job last week as we were talking about infertility. That was our first part. We're entering into the second part with her. Siphesihle is a clinical psychologist. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me back, Benjamin and Palesa. Good morning, good morning. I hope you guys are good.
Good morning.
Yeah, we are very good. Okay, let's start this one because, last week we're supposed to come to this point, but you know what? It's a sensitive issue. We couldn't just rush through it because there's so many things to consider. Let's talk a little bit about where we are now with this conversation. Once a couple has overcome infertility and they get the news of that they are pregnant, I'm sure the initial stages are the ones that are sensitive because that's when you're not sure where the pregnancy is going to go. And that could have many psychological implications.
Yes, that is true. I always say on the other side of any challenge or adversity, we find two types of people. On the one side, we find people who, despite the challenges, are going to thrive. On the other hand, we find people who are going to struggle. And largely, the people who are going to struggle, it's a mix of things. It's not just the struggle of getting pregnant. It's a history of multitude of other struggles that then bring about how one then copes with this current struggle of having been with infertility and then finally having a child. So then how they cope with the news of I have a child now, it's on the one side, it's the excitement, but then on the other side, it's the fear of, but I've struggled so much to get this child. How will I carry this pregnancy? Will I see this child to full term? When I this child, what are the challenges thereafter? So the brain then goes on a spiral of what if onlys, and once the brain goes spiraling, it becomes very challenging for some people, largely because of, like I said, a multitude of other issues based from biology, psychology, social factors that influence how people then cope with issues, adversities.
So
we have Yes.
Apologies there. These two times in this couple's life, they interact in a very strange way because they've already gone through, I'm sure, a multitude of emotions during the fertility treatment process itself. Sometimes so much so that they may even be on the brink of a breakup because of the emotions. Now, coming from there and having to be joyful that the child is here doesn't really take away some of the experiences and emotions that the couple would have gone through during the treatment process itself, right?
No, it doesn't. In fact, it influences how then the couple see each other in the journey, because now when they're pregnant, they're starting a new phase. They have overcome the phase of infertility and they are now starting a phase of we are going to be parents. But now each partner is then going to reflect on who am I parenting with, based on how each partner was during their journey to falling pregnant in the first place. So then how the partners were treating each other, how the support looked like in the journey of infertility is going to largely influence how one then trusts the partner into, am I going to trust this person to partner with me? Am I going to trust this person to be able to support me emotionally or in any other aspects of my life during this journey when I'm pregnant and when I give birth? Because now they have an experience of this partner either not being supportive during the journey, how they've changed and how they showed up for them or for each other during the journey of infertility. Because then you can judge a person a lot by how they treat you during the challenging times or the challenging phases in your relationships, to say then when it's good, but now I have a not so great experience of you or your lack of support during times when I really needed you. Are you gonna be consistent in your absence, or are
Yeah.
you gonna change?
Yeah, that's so um, powerful that you say that, because there's so many things to navigate. And of course, all relationships look differently. There are those who handle these situations in a more coupling way, where they very much working in a more positive way together. But there's also that stage of stress, right? To make sure that the pregnancy itself is healthy. And that's also something you can't control, right? It's beyond you. And but I've heard that stress can be a determining factor, especially for couples who've struggled.
Yes. So when we look at couples, or when we look at any patient for that matter, we look at what are the factors that are building blocks to how this person is going to cope with the next phase or whatever challenge or the phase they're in life. And one of the factors we look in is to the biological factors. So like what you're saying now is stress, because remember, stress then becomes building blocks for even the fetus as you are pregnant, because all those hormones also go into the baby, go into the mother. We know that during pregnancy, there's a lot of hormonal imbalances. So all of those then become contributing factors into the woman's state of being physically, into how they carry this pregnancy and the complications they might face thereafter based on the amount of stress and adversities that they are facing. And that is above and beyond the psychological and social factors outside of the actual like hormonal changes that are happening during the course of the pregnancy.
How
So we
important?
always say,
Sure, you were saying? No, continue. You were saying, just wrap up
no,
there.
I was saying that that's why it's important then, for when the moment we realize that something is wrong, we're not feeling great, we're not feeling positive, we're not having a positive outlook
Yeah.
on where we are, seek help when there's enough time or early enough intervention for us to actually help and manage in the early stages.
You see, it's good to be a good listener, because that's what I was going to ask you next, in terms of how important is it to have that therapy support as a couple moving together into that stage. Because I think it's easier when we are in moments of distress that are visible, like during the infertility stages. But once you have the child, you feel like, now we're okay, she's pregnant, we're moving on. That period, is it also important maybe to consider continuing therapy?
It is. It's very important, because remember, once negative thoughts start coming in, the brain, I always tell my patients, the brain has a tendency of trying to fight you in trying to maintain and feed the actual negative thoughts, so that it makes you more prone to stress or depression. So the moment we realize that we're not having a positive outlook, we're not having a healthy experience with our pregnancy, seek help then, because in the early stages of awareness of this is not I'm not having a positive outlook, then interventions becomes easier without medication during your pregnancy. But also, as a couple, it becomes important for them to come together, so that we teach both parties, because remember, just because the woman is the one who's pregnant and carrying the baby, the husband plays a very important role in supporting, because after the pregnancy, you're building an experience for your partner, you're building an experience for your child, to say, how reliable are you to me? How reliable are you going to be as a head of household, as a father figure for my child? And you want to minimize as much stress for your partner as possible by being able to show up and learning new ways and how to show up for your partner, and ultimately for your children and your household.
Okay, specifically, we're going to go for a break. Stay there with us. We're speaking to Siphesihle Dlamini, a clinical psychologist. It's our part 2 of this conversation in our Live Well feature, where we're looking at life after infertility. How do you process that, especially if you are a couple that has got the great news that you are now pregnant? Other things to focus on post that, and that's the subject matter of today. What's your take on it? Give us your thoughts via our WhatsApp number.
She builds, she leads, she rises. This August, join Channel Africa in celebrating the women who shape our communities, shift narratives, and carve out a future on their own terms.
These These women together ought to be able to turn it right again.
From Cape Town to Kigali, Lagos to Lusaka, African women are rewriting the script. Here's to courage, creativity, and unstoppable progress. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Palesa and Benjamin fuel your day with fresh African perspective on Channel Africa.
It's part 2 of our conversation on a couple that experiences infertility treatment, and going into the conversation of what happens once that couple falls pregnant and become parents. We're speaking to Siphesihle Dlamini, who's a clinical psychologist. Started the conversation with us last week and helping us sort of wrap it up on a good note this week as well. So Siphesihle, what is the expected sort of emotional cycle that this particular couple is going through? What can they expect when it comes to the emotions that they'll all, the psychological interactions they'll have to deal with from the process of infertility treatment to them being pregnant, and of course, all the way up to when they actually have the child?
So I always say expect high highs and low lows. And mids, which is to say you never know. One day you're going to wake up, you're going to have a positive outlook about this pregnancy. You're going to be excited about it. You're going to make plans. The next day you might feel low because then you wake up and you have all these thoughts coming in, flooding in, and they making you question your choices, and they're making you question where you are. They're making you doubt your experience. They're making you doubt how long you're going to be able to carry this baby. And then there are days where you just bleh. And you just like, you know what, I'm gonna go with the flow. It is what it is, and you're not active. You become passive in your engagement with this pregnancy. Yeah. So as a couple, I say be mindful of each other, because you won't always be maybe excited about the pregnancy at the same time, and so be able to support your partner when they are at their lows while you are at your high. And this you do by being mindful of how they feel, being mindful of where they are, whether it's the guy supporting the woman, because you don't understand where each person is with their journey into processing where you are in your pregnancy. Yeah. So being mindful of each other, being able to support each other, ask each other, what do you need from me today? What can I do for you? Yeah. How can I help you today? Do you need anything? Reassurance goes a long way from each other, because then you're constantly reinforcing, and that reinforcement challenges any negative cognitive thoughts. These are the negative thoughts that one might have. So reinforcing and being able to show up in support is able to then challenge these negative thoughts, to show your partner that, oh, actually, this is a beautiful experience. This is an exciting experience. Like the gynecologist said last week, things like, let's schedule a photo shoot. Yeah. Let's go together to buy clothes for the baby. As a guy, being able to say, let's go together, so that I also learn which nappies to buy, which bottle to get, because sometimes it becomes a woman's only responsibility to know these things. But if your partner is able to show up and show you that I'm in this with you 100%, I want to know everything. I want to know how to change the nappies. So things like going for classes, how to take care of the baby, and as a woman or as a guy, that both of you are well equipped to be able to take care of this baby, from changing nappies to feeding, and not just because the woman is breastfeeding that then now the toll becomes on her, but as a partner, that I can look to my partner on days when I'm low and I'm struggling. I know my partner has the capacity to take care and fit in and filled in on days when I'm unable to show up.
Yeah, it's a coupling journey, isn't it? It's really about holding each other's hands and making sure that as a couple, you're getting that support. But also, do you bring in others as well in this journey? I always wonder about that, on how you can get more support than each other. Because at times we walk the journey on our own as couples. But in this difficult transition, I'm sure the support of those outside of your relationship, being a couple, is also important.
Yes, that's when then the society in raising a child comes in. Yeah. Because you can support each other so much, but sometimes you need external factors outside of you to say, where can I go to get support when at the household right now, I'm not good enough, or I don't feel like I'm good enough, then let me go out somewhere. Let me go speak to my friends. Let me go speak to my parents. Let me go speak to my siblings. Let me create a community for me and my partner and my child to say, when we are unable to, we have an aunt, we have an uncle, we have a mamkulu, we have someone else outside of us who's going to be able to show up for us, who's also going to be able to show up for our child, so that we don't feel like we're walking this journey alone and there's no one else out there. So we're trying to always say couples must not feel like they're in a desert in their parenting. Community is very important. So reach out to your siblings, reach out to your friends, rope them in. But also remember, to be a communer, you also have to be a community member as well. So people are going to show up for you as much as you also been able to show up for others. So in this journey of life, it's we're feeding off each other, and we need to nurse relationships so that we are able to show up for others and others are able to show up for us in terms of
That is
need.
so true.
Yeah,
This sounds like
I've
a
got a
roller
question
coaster
for this
ride.
one. Ne?
Yeah.
Sorry, Pali, because imagine now bring others in.
Yeah.
Must you be discerning in that? Because look, there's people that have always expected that, hey, we want this child.
Yes.
As much as you also have that pressure to have that child. And during that journey, they were almost like the pressure system. How do you bring those people in as well? Or do you have to be very selective in that? Because you know how much family demands that, hey, you must have this child. And at times that's where you don't know, do I bring these people in? Do I leave them out?
Because they've been part of the distress, right?
Distress, yeah.
So that's why being able to be discerning is important. You as an adult, as the couple, you're old. You've had relationships with these people, which is why I'm saying being able to show up for others is you're then able to assess who are these people, how do they show up, what's their personality like, what's their coping mechanisms like, because you're not trying to expose yourself to toxicity in a time where it's already challenging for you, and you're not trying to expose your children once they're born to this level of toxicity. So boundaries become very important once you become a family. So just because you can have a nice time with, I'm using a student with Cynthia, doesn't mean then Cynthia becomes a healthy individual to introduce into your life and into your family. So some relationships might break down. That's the reality, and that's part of the things that people must expect. Some relationships will be strengthened, but boundaries become important because then you as a couple, you've decided that this is what we want to build as a couple, this is what we want to build as a family, and these are the types of people we know can influence that and can help us build in that journey. And then you put necessary boundaries for people who are going to challenge that, who are going to make it more difficult for you. We're trying to alleviate as much stress as possible. And if that means minimizing some contact, it doesn't mean cut off people. We're not about the just cut off people without actually understanding. You need to fully understand the people you have around you so that you can reposition them appropriately, so that they play a role that they're supposed to play and they don't interfere in areas of your life that they're not supposed to.
Okay, Siphesihle, this is the last part of this great 2-part series on this conversation. So really quickly, if there is one really important, just one, because we're almost out of time, one really important practical tool that this couple can use to make sure that they go through this journey together and hopefully enjoy their family as well.
I advocate for couples therapy. It goes a long way into teaching you how to be individuals and how to be a couple together, and in how to have goals, how to set boundaries with each other, so that it teaches you how to coexist. In that way, you're already creating a solid foundation for yourselves as individuals and as a couple, so that by the time you have children, you're bringing them into a healthy foundation where it's goal orientated, it is protected, it has value, and you have already cultivated the necessary support. So couples therapy goes a long way. Individual therapy goes a long way to finding yourselves as individuals and then coming together as a couple.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Siphesihle. Speaking about going to therapy, just quickly, where can we find you, or where can people find you to interact with you further?
I am on the socials, Instagram, Mindworks. You can email us. You can check us also on Instagram at Mindworks Practice. I am also on social media. Unfortunately, my account is private for work purposes. But find us on Mindworks. I'm currently on maternity leave, so
Nice.
I have a baby.
Okay.
Well,
okay.
enjoy.
Your maternity leave. Thank you so much for your time. That's clinical psychologist Siphesihle Dlamini helping us with the part 2 of this conversation on couples undergoing infertility treatment and, of course, their process once they get pregnant and have that child.